Hello, Tom again. So at this stage in the exercise, we have train defined along with the track gauges enumeration that we're using inside of it. Now we're going to create our two child classes, passenger train and freight train. Okay, the passenger train obviously is a I-passenger carrier, so we can see that that supports that interface, and therefore it has a passenger capacity and a passenger load public field. Now, in order to implement those fields, I have the correction properties. I have the underlying fields to go with them. Now, one of the things that we're going to do that's a little bit different about this class is we're going to seal it. What we mean by sealing it is we're going to just, for efficiency purposes, for performance purposes, we're going to say this is the end of the line for this particular family of this particular hierarchy of classes. Okay, so that means that passenger train will not be able to be used as a base class for any further classes. Now you might argue that, oh, well, maybe I want to make a commuter train that's going to have some special properties, etc., and so on, and I would buy that. But for the purposes of this example, I just want to show you how to actually do that. So we'll seal that off. Now, since this is going to be a sealed class, these two fields that we had in car, they were protected. We might as well make them private in this class since there is no possibility for any further child classes. Freight train works exactly the same way. We'll have a couple of private fields, a couple of public properties. We're not supporting an interface in this case. Of course, I could have more than one interface, so I could have an RI cargo carrier interface as well to link something like a truck and a freight train. But we'll just leave it as it is for now. Okay, so let's start off with passenger train. Add class. I'm going to call it make sure I spell it correctly. Passenger train dot cs. Okay, starting off, same sort of things that I did in the previous classes. And set some comments. Include some documentation comments. Leave these all on one line, but I'm just going to add an enter there so you can actually read it in the video. The class itself is public. It's not abstract, it's sealed instead. Obviously it can't be sealed and abstract at the same time. It's a class called passenger train, which inherits train, I should say. Okay, and it supports I-passenger carrier. Let's deal with the fields and properties first. So let's deal with passenger capacity first. Okay, and I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so you can read it. This passenger capacity field and corresponding property, you can maybe save yourself a little bit of typing if you really want to. It's almost identical to the one from car. The only difference is that the underlying field is no longer protected, but rather private since it's a sealed class. Okay, so my passenger capacity is the field name. Passenger capacity in Pascal case is the property name. There's some validation in the set that prevents you from setting it to a negative capacity. Okay, and yeah, that's pretty much the capacity field. Let's do the same thing for the passenger load. All right, so I will just again put a temporary new line in there so you can read it. Okay, so again, just pretty much exactly the same one from car, except that it's private. I have not only the checking to see if it's negative, the passenger load, but also making sure that the passenger capacity is not exceeded in the set for passenger load. So those are my two properties for a passenger train. Let's go up near the top here and define the constructor. Okay, so I'm going to put the constructor before the two properties so I can find them easily. And I'm just basing this based on the other classwork that we've done. Okay, so a constructor initializes our new passenger train instances. I've got new defaults. I'll again just let you see what those are for the purposes of typing this stuff in. The appropriate train. There's 4 of them here that are all dealt with by the train constructor. And then the only thing left over is the passenger capacity, and then the passenger load, which we set to 0, not to a parameter. So it's consistent with how we've done the rest of them. And the final method, we'll put this one down at the bottom, is the override of toString. Okay, so we're overriding toString specific to the passenger train class, and I've set this up basically the same way. I'm calculating what the percentage of capacity is. This is more or less, again, almost exactly what we've seen in car. Displaying the passenger capacity and the passenger load. With the passenger load, I'm showing it not only in terms of the actual number stored in that property, but also in terms of a percentage. Okay, so that's our passenger train class. I'll save that, and that's sort of ready to go. Let's deal with the cargo train now. Okay, I'll make this a little bit wider. Add new class. I'm going to call it, I said cargo train, but it's actually freight train. And think about how it's actually spelt there. Freighttrain.cs. Alrighty, let's polish up this source code file. A regular comment at the top. A comment for the actual class. I'll shrink this back up again so you can read it. And I'm busy here commenting as if this was the train class. My mistake. So let me fix that up. Okay, so this is supposed to be freight train. Let's copy that. Defines the freight train class. The freight train class, it doesn't do that stuff. It represents a train that hauls cargo. It inherits from train. It's a public class. It's also sealed like passenger train is, and it also inherits from train. However, it does not support any particular interface. The stuff inside of a train, based on how we have it defined, is pretty much the same as a truck. So I'm just going to start off with the constructor. Right now, the cargo capacity and cargo load properties are not going to be, they're not quite defined yet, so they're coming up as an error, but I know that I'll be able to fix that later on. A few little extra enters there, so you can read the whole thing. We'll get rid of one of those errors at least by defining the cargo capacity. Again, it's just like the truck, except that it's private instead of protected. Let's define the cargo load now. Again, just like a truck. So that you can see it there. And finally, our override of toString. So obviously I went through that very quickly, but we've seen all of this code before in different areas, and certainly you can pause the video as need be. Ooh, I can see I've got a little typo there. You can pause the video as need be to get caught up. Okay, so now that we have all of our classes defined, let's pop back into the console program and test some of this train stuff out. So last time we tried to test train, we wanted to see if it was, we couldn't create any train objects directly, but we were able to create one indirectly through the inherit test. What I want to see now is I want to see if I can change this from train to freight train. Okay, and see if it should work the same way, I think. And not really. Okay, so we have some build errors. Let's check those out. I'll say no. And the problem, of course, is you may recall that we said that freight train was a sealed class. Okay, I can change this to passenger train as well, and I'll have the same, okay, passenger train, and go ahead and try to run that. It's still going to give me the same type of issue. Okay. Oh, and there's also the issue with fill it up as well, but I digress. Okay, so I can't actually do this kind of thing. I'm just going to change it back to train. By the way, I could do it with a car. That's not a problem. Okay. So a car actually works. Okay. A train works. Okay. A vehicle would have worked as well. But a freight train or a passenger train will not work. All right. So let's shrink this up again. I'll leave that the way it is. And let's scroll down to where we were declaring the test object again. So I'm going to comment that out. And what I'm going to put back here is I'm going to change this from a regular train, which I know wouldn't work, to a freight train. Okay, so, and again, I could specify parameters here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to bother. So test object is now a freight train. I'm going to go ahead and run that. And we can see I've got some obviously freight train type information here. Okay, so that seems to have worked. Let's change it to a passenger train and see if we see any difference. Okay, this is actually what it was originally in the file. All right, go ahead and run that. And we can see here it still runs, but I'm getting some passenger train type information, which is good. Okay, and the final thing is that passenger train does support the passenger carrier interface, so my move random people function, or method I should say, should work as well. Okay, so there's my new output. So I can see I've got some random amount of energy and range remaining. If I run it again, it should be a different amount. Alrighty. So there's more that you can do inside the main if you wanted to, in terms of your tutorial, play around with things a little bit differently or test some other things out just to confirm your understanding. But this is basically the basics. By the end of the exercise, you'll end up with a class library that's starting to get fairly sophisticated. So this is just a class diagram of the vehicle classes library that I've expanded everything out. There's quite a few little moving, quite a few parts to it here that all working together. So hopefully that was a useful exercise. Thank you.